On a tense October morning in 2025, Australia's Minister of Defence stepped up to the podium in Canberra and made a statement that echoed across the Pacific. China's military expansion in the South China Sea can no longer be ignored. It requires an immediate and firm response from Australia and its allies. One sentence, yet it was enough to reignite one of the world's most dangerous geopolitical flashpoints. That declaration reshaped the map of tensions across the Indo-Pacific region. But what's really happening? Why now? And is this just political posturing or the beginning of a real military standoff? Let's dive deep into the unfolding drama. For years, China has treated the South China Sea as if it were its own private lake. It has built artificial islands, installed missile defense systems, and constructed airstrips capable of hosting fighter jets in waters claimed by other nations like the Philippines, Vietnam, and Malaysia. But what's changed now is the scale of China's activity. Its naval expansion has moved closer to key global trade routes, corridors through which nearly 40% of world commerce flows. To Washington, this is a direct challenge to the post-World War II system of freedom of navigation. And for Australia, geography makes neutrality impossible. Tied to Washington through the AUKUS alliance, alongside the UK, Canberra has become a frontline player in the unfolding great power rivalry. In recent weeks, satellite images have revealed unusual naval movements off northern Australia. Reconnaissance aircraft, joint drills with US and Japanese forces, and intensified surveillance in the Timor and Coral Seas. Behind the scenes, however, Western intelligence agencies were detecting something even more concerning. New satellite data showed that China had deployed nuclear-powered attack submarines near the Spratly Islands and launched advanced drones to track Australian naval vessels. That's when the tension turned into a potential confrontation. Analysts at the Lowy Institute in Sydney argue that Beijing is now testing the limits of Australian restraint. In other words, China wants to see how far Canberra is willing to go without direct US backing, but the Australian Defence Minister didn't leave much room for ambiguity. He announced a strategic redeployment of forces to Darwin Base, the same port used by the US during World War II. Meanwhile, in the background, elements of the US 7th Fleet were repositioning near Taiwan. A quiet but unmistakable message: Washington will not let Canberra stand alone. In response, Beijing issued a stark warning through its defense ministry. Any attempt to encircle China militarily will be met with overwhelming force. At the same time, Chinese media began leaking reports about a new generation of hypersonic missiles capable of striking targets in northern Australia within minutes. What we're witnessing is more than a territorial dispute. It's a clash over who will dominate the 21st century. Will it be Washington and its Western allies? Or Beijing and its expanding sphere of influence? For Australia, the stakes couldn't be higher. It now sits on the front line of what may soon be known as the Cold War of the Pacific. A single miscalculation, a downed drone, a naval collision, could ignite a regional conflict that no one truly wants. Behind closed doors, defense officials from the US, UK, and Australia are accelerating plans under AUKUS, the nuclear submarine program that was initially scheduled for 2030. Now, insiders suggest it could be operational by 2027, a clear sign that the West is preparing for the possibility of real confrontation. Meanwhile, Europe watches nervously. While the continent remains absorbed by the war in Ukraine, a second front may be forming thousands of miles away, one that could reshape global power dynamics. As Canberra's rhetoric grows sharper, talk of a counter-China alliance is emerging, potentially involving Japan, India, and South Korea. But Beijing, with the world's second-largest economy, knows the time is on its side. China doesn't need to fire a shot. It can win through patience, economic leverage, and control over maritime trade, bleeding its rivals politically and economically. In the end, we may never see a full-scale war. But we are already living through the opening chapter of an Asian Cold War, one that no longer revolves around Washington or Moscow, but between Canberra and Beijing.